Why, hello, and welcome to Girls Gone Wild. No, not Girls Gone Wild. It's the Sanctuary Podcast.
Oh, sweet Jesus.
Hey, it's Steak and Loving Day. That's my excuse. Remember, the steak's really important. If the steak's cooked really well, that's the important thing. And also, Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. And if you're a mother and a wife, good luck. Anyway, we have the Roving Bear. How are you doing, Roving Bear?
Not too bad, not too bad. It's a weekend, you can't complain. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good. I am pretty good indeed. I have a dog behind me. Now coming to me. Yes, I'm all good. How's your streams been?
Not too bad, thanks. I mean, we've been getting down with Valorant lately, which, you know, for a free game, it's a solid.
It's only a good game if you use dice to decide where you go.
Oh god, no, it's not D&D.
Everything's D&D. Everything. So, you have been getting heavy into the old Valorant, haven't you?
I have, to be honest. I love the fact that the game doesn't so much... I like the fact it's free. I like the fact that the game has elements of tactics in there outside of your usual military style kind of things that you'd get in a shooting game. It's one of the reasons why I'm a big fan of Splatoon. Splatoon and Valorant have characters with skill sets that allow me to kind of dictate this sort of battleground, move people around, and you've got teammates and such. It's honestly, I've really enjoyed playing that game lately.
It is a game. Most definitely, it is a game. It's good when you play with dice. There's some screwed up logic behind my thinking, I think.
Maybe just a little.
So, we are about to go... Well, we've had announcements, like, last week, and I went into them in the last time's podcast, like the multitude of Final Fantasy VII announcements that we had last week, which is absolutely awesome. But Xbox, and there's a few others that have and made quite a few announcements. Bethesda and Xbox's merger, or buyout, shall I say, that's gone through now, and they celebrated by putting the a lot of the Bethesda library onto their Game Pass.
On the one hand, I was so happy and delighted. On the other hand, it's like Amazon Prime to me all over again. You know, you go out there, you buy a film, or in my case, I bought Dishonored 1, because Dishonored 2's on Game Pass, Dishonored 1 wasn't. And then they added it, and I'm like I bought Oblivion, that's now been added. So you're like, yeah, it's free, but god dang it, if I'd known, I wouldn't have bought it.
I know, right? And it didn't feel like it was actually going to happen for a long time, but obviously it has happened. That's why I like what PlayStation did, because they handed out Final Fantasy VII Remake to the PlayStation Plus users. But they put the caveat in that if you buy the actual game instead of getting it by PlayStation Plus, what they've done is said that it gets a free upgrade when it goes to PS5. If you get a PS5, it gets a free upgrade.
That's the case with a few games, although on the Game Pass, not so, because a lot of the games that I play on Game Pass nowadays are just automatically upgraded. With the games I've mentioned with Dishonored and Oblivion, I don't think they could do that. But
no,
at the same time, you almost would want to see something. But in all fairness to Xbox, I get what their strategy is, and their strategy is to try and be as inclusive as possible in that, so I don't think they'd do it. That's not to say that Sony aren't, it's just that they're different styles in how they want to handle it. Like, Sony would like to reward people who put in their extra pennies, whereas Xbox look at it as like this might happen to a game you've bought, but there are other games on there that will entice you across, and, you don't want that to happen again, so you'll probably buy into the service. I mean,
there's pros and cons on both sides, and I think we've discussed it quite a bit in the past, haven't we? The pros and cons of every...
The other big thing to highlight about this deal as well, just to quickly add on, I know everyone's talking about it as Microsoft owns Bethesda. That's the big story. For me, though, there is another element in there that people haven't quite picked up on. Now, it's no secret that Microsoft have wanted to break into Japan for the longest time. Obviously, it's one of the big gaming centers of the world. It's the home of their main rivals. And the Bethesda deal has actually given them one of the biggest and up and coming kind of brands in Japanese gaming, which is Tango. The guys who are making Ghostwire Tokyo, a game which it's going to be a big one for Sony in Japan in the next year or so when it comes out. It's going to be interesting to see how that changes Microsoft's game development by having a Japanese studio which has a very different culture to them. And obviously, it's the first step towards breaking into Japan for Microsoft.
I think the one thing that's gonna happen, and as we've said before, this is probably the final Xbox. I don't see it for Xbox. I think there'll be another
I'll be honest
PlayStation.
with you.
I
I
don't see it for
think
Xbox.
there may be another Xbox. I don't think you're going to look at anything more than that. I think it might have one more generation in them. The reality is, Xbox, if Xbox could, right, I bet you they would happily sign away a deal with PlayStation tomorrow where PS Now ceases to be, and in return, Xbox ceases to be, and instead you have an Xbox certified console.
That would
Which
take
would then
Xbox some
have the
money
Game
though.
Pass.
But let's
Well,
be honest, the cards are pretty much all in Sony's hands from the last generation, and looks like it'll be this generation as well.
I mean, yeah, except I don't know. The impression I get is that with the kind of generational gaps, they're both selling out fast, and it's not like they're both skimping on the amount of models they're selling.
It's hilarious. It's like, yes, we've released a console that nobody can buy because we don't have enough of them. In one hand, it's
Supply
very,
and
very
demand is
successful,
fantastic.
and in the other hand, it's like, oh, really?
That said, I think we'd be doing a disservice to not mention Nintendo. The fact that they're now entering again into the home market with a Switch Pro, which rumor has it will have specific games that only it can play. I'm
They
not
are
a big
going
fan
a
of that.
very odd way of this.
I mean, the whole thing is right, with PlayStation and Xbox. The reason why the consoles have been muted in how powerful these two things are so far in the games released is that they're trying to include people into it because not everyone has the money. So Nintendo going away with, oh, we're going to have specific games that only it can play, rather than optimizing.
It's going to be interesting to see what they do and how they roll it out and how quickly they roll it out. Obviously, at some stage, your older versions become defunct because they're not powerful enough. And that is obviously going to happen with PlayStation 4 and previous
As a
Xbox.
Nintendo fan, I think I'd be more pissed off though if it was like a Mario Kart game that was excluded from the Switch, because we've been given ports after ports after ports from the Wii U, and in brackets, not the one I wanted, Project Zero, but I've paid for Mario Kart 8 twice effectively and got next to nothing. I paid for it on the basis that we were told there was going to be some really exciting new content. I count 2 battle maps and a Breath of the Wild costume for Link. Now,
Oh
I'm
my
sorry,
god, that's so exciting! Sorry.
that's not worth the extra 20 odd quid that you'd be paying to pay for the same game twice. I basically paid full price for it twice because I did it on Wii U, and now if they release a new Mario Kart on the new Switch Pro and expect you to then pay again, it's like, for the console and the game, I'd be feeling a little bit pissed off, to be honest.
I do get that, and it's going to be interesting to see the actual direction that they go.
That said, I don't expect anything different from Nintendo because they've just announced a Miitopia game which is going to be priced at twice as much as the original was priced at.
Kind of feel Nintendo's losing its way slightly in the market that it's in.
Well,
It used
I don't know what
to be a console which was revolutionary. And when you when you talk about revolutionary consoles now, I wouldn't include the Nintendo Switch as a revolutionary console. But I would say Nintendo made the most revolutionary console that was ever created in the Nintendo Wii.
Well, this is the thing now. Nintendo and Microsoft's relationships have been deepening over years, and it almost feels like that might be partially why Nintendo has adapted as it has. If you look at the Switch is like any other Microsoft product in that there have been earlier iterations that have kind of really expanded what it could do in different directions. And at times you wondered how they all added up. And then the Switch was them accumulating all these things in one. Even when that, I mean, to be honest, when they, I don't know if you ever saw it, they did a release trailer for the Switch and the announcement, and the guy was talking about the great innovations in Nintendo consoles. When he showed the GameCube, and I quote, the handle that made it portable, I was like, huh. I mean, that's not that innovative, but okay, you added a handle onto a console. You basically did what we've been doing for centuries, but great.
Well done!
With
You can now
Nintendo,
carry it using your hands.
like, my kid me was there going, well, I had a bag for my Game Boy with a handle, and I also had a bag for my PlayStation when I took it to my mate's house, so. But,
How
you know,
likely are you to
I,
carry a console? Like, just walking around the street carrying this console by its handle, not in a bag.
mm,
It starts to rain, you're up shit creek.
reality is, it's going to be interesting to see how Nintendo do, and I apologise for going on the bashing front again. But when they did the announcements of the new Miitopia game and the new Skyward Sword, which, let's be honest, isn't the best Zelda game, and they were charging like 60 quid for the pair of them, you're like, yeah, no. So that was the Nintendo Direct that we kind of missed out really properly getting into. But you mentioned about Microsoft. Well, obviously, during this Microsoft conversation, rumors have been going around that Microsoft are going to be doing another game showcase like they did middle of last year, and it's coming at the end of this month, apparently. And because of all of the studios Xbox own, including Bethesda, the rumor is that we're going to see some major updates on a few of these big games.
I don't see
That
anything groundbreaking coming out of this. As we've discussed before in your little game that you did with
I,
Corner of the Internet and
yep,
myself, this year is
I
going to be a
think
dud year for gaming.
I think we are going to see bigger updates, but I feel like anybody who is building up to Halo Infinite, there are two things I want to say on this. One is, given how much needed to be changed last time they showed it, I don't think it's coming soon. And secondly, there was a little announcement that they were ditching dual wielding for the new Halo Infinite game, so you can no longer hold the gun and the sword. Now, in one sense, that actually makes it slightly more believable to me, because like, how the are you going to hold like a shotgun and a rifle in one hand and a sword in the other? Like, I
Ask
don't know
Lara
anyone's upper
Croft.
body strength that wouldn't be torn to shreds by that.
I mean, Lara Croft's pretty good at dual wielding. So, two pistols, which her accuracy must be absolutely shit in real life if she's running around like that.
I can't imagine how you would be able to be as sufficient that way. The other thing to highlight on it really is, I don't know. I just think it's not coming this year. I think we're going to get a Breath of the Wild 2 on it, but the the fact that Sony fans were picking on the design, and to be true rightly as well, the design of one of the kind of mobs in that game trailer wasn't good enough for what we were talking about as optimized graphics.
Talking
So I
about
don't think we're going to see
graphics,
Xbox. I don't think we're going to see Halo coming to the
I
Xbox
don't
this
think
year.
we will.
But if they were to show more on two games, I think people would get more excited. And those two games I think are Avowed, which we
Yeah.
got a trailer to last time. It looks good. Like, I've never played that series of games that it's spawned out of, but it looks good. It's got all the kind of ingredients to be a really good RPG game. And then the other one is Fable. Now, we know that Fable is well along. Like, it doesn't take much of a cursory glance on Google to realize that they've been beta testing this game for months.
Let's
That
be
tells
fair,
me
we know this to be true.
we can't go into any further details.
Yeah, but we know
that,
this
but
to be true.
the reality is, if you beta tested a game that much over months, you can't be far from it, because beta testing is like the stage before like a final round of debugging.
Done at about the
Honestly,
same time as debugging as well, so they have to be in the debugging / it's about finished / we're not sure whether we're ready to release this / we're probably going to wait till the next financial year.
I suspect it's going to be next financial year holiday season.
Yeah.
And honestly, this Nintendo, anyone who looks at Nintendo's consoles, I would be very curious to see this, right, in terms of sales figures, because I know I did. I don't know how many of you did this as well. When a couple of years ago, Nintendo did a March Direct and showed off Super Smash Bros. I understand that financial year where Smash Bros was released to be one of their best ever, because people just literally got hyped about that game. Animal Crossing probably has overtaken it since, but that was also a game that came out at the corner of a financial year. So, yeah, no, it's a pivotal time for games companies, and I can see Xbox, if they're going to do something at the end of one financial year, ahead of another one, there's going to be something about that financial year which they're going to want to try and put forward to really sell the console.
I was also expecting to see a Final Fantasy VII Part 2 release date being put out there, but I don't think that's been put out there yet.
On the Final Fantasy VII point, I'm curious, right? Because Final Fantasies have been released on the Xbox in recent years. You were saying to me the other day you don't think it's going to come out on Xbox.
I don't think it'll come out on Xbox.
Okay, then go on. I'll bite.
Final Fantasy VII is their biggest Final Fantasy. I don't think there's any questions there. People have a Final Fantasy VIII favourite or 10.
Who's biggest? Square Enix's.
It's their biggest Final Fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only Final Fantasy, when they've remade it, that they're going to make into 2, 3, 4, 5 parts. You realise how big they think Final Fantasy VII is. It's their jewel in their crown. Somehow it became their biggest Final Fantasy. And if you look at all the offshoots of Final Fantasy, it had a film, it had this. I don't think they'll give their jewel in the crown to Xbox. Because, at least not for the few years. I think it'll go to PC first, because PC is a completely different market. When it gets released on Xbox, I think it might get released on Xbox, and then they'll talk about the next part. It will be again done in the same manner. It will go to PlayStation for a load of time on its own, and then it will go to PC. Then it might actually end up going on Xbox, but I think it'll be a while yet.
See, my view on it is, I think, like you kind of alluded to there, it's going to be a timed exclusive, because Square Enix aren't owned by Sony. If Sony had any sense, Sony would buy Square Enix. I know people keep telling them to. Well, the thing is, everyone keeps banging on about Sony buying Rockstar. Like, seriously, buy Square Enix.
Square Enix is the safer bet.
Square Enix is the safer bet for Sony. Square Enix is a game which sells great on PlayStation, but the moment that Final Fantasy went to Xbox, it did show that there were an increase in sales in Japan for Xbox. Basically, Sony needs to kind of focus on its backyard again, because you can see what Xbox's plan is. Xbox knows it's got America. To a degree. Not obviously. I think from what I understand, sales there are still 50-50. But Xbox doesn't do well in Asia. And I can see what their strategy is. They want to change it this generation. That's why Tango Gameworks was such a big deal for Xbox. Buy into that Tango Gameworks, buy into a Japanese agency. Get your name out there as somebody who supports Japanese developers. You'll get more of them. And as you do, you'll probably end up getting more of the market.
It'd be interesting to see it country by country kind of thing.
Well, I know Nintendo used to release those stats, which used to be really helpful, because they used to tell you, like, the Wii U?
Yeah.
Like, I remember there was a thing that came out about the Wii U that said that in the Wii U's lifetime, the best-selling games in the world, like in Japan, the best-selling Nintendo game was Splatoon. But that game came 5th in the UK and USA. which I found quite curious because it's like, well, you know, it says something about the culture of the game, or maybe how quick the Japanese were to go on to a brand new IP. I don't know, but it would be interesting to see how that does actually change. And certainly, I'd love to see a graph that shows me the sales of Xbox consoles in Japan by generation and compared to the Nintendo and the Sony. Because we know that Sony and Nintendo will always be right at the top. But I wonder if, as the Xbox is going upwards, which is what we're hearing, are one of those two actually going downwards?
Yeah, I think like good few of my friends see the Xbox as a secondary console. They're like, I've got a PlayStation, I've got an Xbox as well. Like, which one did you get first? But PlayStation first, and I got the Xbox for Fable and stuff like that. So it's an interesting one, and I think, and then obviously there's the ones with the Nintendo Switch as well, which like they like corner all the market here.
The thing is, for me, and I know a lot of people do wonder, I will always love the PlayStation 1 and 2. The PlayStation 3 was a labour of love at times.
PlayStation 3 was poor.
PlayStation 4 was a return to the PlayStation 2 almost, I'd say. It was probably on a powered PlayStation 1. Like, PlayStation 2 is the OG PlayStation for me. Like, you'll never top that. The range of games, the value, you know. But with the Xbox console and the shift over, I just felt like moving forward, the services that both offer, PS Now and Game Pass, are going to become more and more prevalent and important this generation. And while, you know, Xbox is at its peak for that right now, or almost nearing peak, Sony has got a way to go to get there. Putting FF7 on there, though, was the logical and best decision. Having Final Fantasy and Spider-Man on PS Now does present it as a better option.
They put it on the same month that they gave it away free.
It's a clever move. It is a clever move to put Final Fantasy on there with Spider-Man. They are both generation-defining games. God of War, I don't know if that's on there. If it was, that'd also be clever. But they still need to do one right. My housemate's got PS Now, and he goes downstairs on my Xbox to have a look at, you know, Game Pass. And he was saying to me the other day, like, he just looks at Game Pass and it's like the wide range and the amount and the value, you know, like PS Now's got a way to go.
Oh, the value of like Game Pass is amazing.
Well, the fact that they're going, you can have a game. Oh, and you can also get like so many months free Disney Plus. Like, you know, somebody has clearly done their marketing homework there and gone, you know, added value is what people want as well, and it's going to be an entertainment service.
And let's be fair, Disney's Plus is new, so they've probably got well.
Could you imagine now?
We'll
if
hook you in.
Xbox. Yeah. Can you imagine if Xbox went, right, you can get your Netflix like subscriptions and stuff through our service, and just like bundled it all together as one central
Disney Plus would
entertainment.
kick off. Disney Plus would not like that.
Well, the thing is, I don't think Disney Plus is going to be there for that much longer, to be honest. But
It won't.
looking at,
It won't. It was an introductory. We've got Disney Plus now. Oh, come take a look! It's amazing. You're now on the line. You're gonna bring us cash.
well, looking at Xbox One, the console that flopped. The reason why it flopped was because they focused too much on being entertainment rather than gaming. This generation have sort of started to bring it back to gaming, but with the Game Pass, it would make more sense to have that entertainment value in there and to kind of package it all together. I don't know. Again, I'm not a games executive. I'm just a big gamer who, big in both ways, who enjoys playing the games. And
in all three ways. Hey. Just as long as Sophie's cooking your steak, as long as Sophie is cooking your steak right now, you're in luck.
Hell yeah. The other thing that I think is worth mentioning to you, you're a big PlayStation fan. There is a big PlayStation conference, albeit in Japan, happening this month. You're probably like, why does this matter to me? Am I right?
No, I just think it's going to be a bit of a damp squib of a year, and I think they have to do a big conference. Coming towards the end of the financial year, they have to do a big conference, right? They have to big up something for next year, and I don't know what they've got to big up. Will they announce a new Spider-Man game?
Well, the thing about PlayStation is that they're holding this thing called PlayStation Presents Play, which is on Sunday the 21st of March, so it's next week. And apparently it's going to be an hour of content focused on Japanese developed titles, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Intergrade, and Resident Evil Village, right? There was another thing about this press release, though, that caught my eye, which suggests to me that Sony aren't as confident as their consumers.
What's that?
To encourage Japanese consumers to tune in, Sony says it will give away 2,000 yen, which is $18, to 100 participants who complete a special ramp rally challenge. Sony don't typically do giveaways. I don't think I can think of many giveaways they give. The fact they're trying to, in the nicest way possible, bribe people to tune in.
That says to me one of two things. One, their announcement is massive, and they have something that is so big in that announcement that you're going to be like, wow, oh my god.
But that's the thing, though. Why? I don't think they need to bribe people to do that, because they just do it and people will go back and watch it.
Or it just doesn't have any big announcements. And the Final Fantasy VII thing, Final Fantasy VII release information on their own. They as I was discussing there was a journalist who works in gaming, and he was there going, "Oh, there's Final Fantasy VII." This was before the remake was release date was announced, and I was like, "Oh, so Final Fantasy VII remake? I think they will announce the date is going to be released at the orchestra." Here's their going, "No, it makes no sense. PlayStation would want to announce it themselves." And I was there going, "No, it makes no sense to do this orchestra without having an announcement." So obviously they have an announcement of some form, and he was there going, "No, it's just because it's its anniversary." I was there going, "It makes more sense." And then they announced it, and I was there going, "I don't want to do the 'I told you so' dance." But it's one of them things that Final Fantasy seem to like to release their own information. I think if a release date was going out for Part 2, it would have came out recently. It would have came out when they did their big bulk drop. Unless PlayStation have begged for that information to release on. So, they say, it's either because they have a really big announcement or they have no announcement. And it's just like, this is gameplay. Maybe it's going to be the redefined copy of Final Fantasy, but they've already announced that and they've already shown it. They've made Cloud's arms bigger. He looks like he's got more arm power. He must have, because have you tried carrying around his sword? It's insane. Yeah, so they bulked up his arms like a slight bit in the redefined version, which is a bit weird, but if they bulk up Barrett much more, I think that there's going to be no more room on the screen.
I still need to play that game. To be honest, when Final Fantasy VII, if it gets on the Xbox, I will probably play it.
It is a really, really good game. It is a very solid, good game.
Hey, you played Persona 5. I owe you that one as much.
On my Persona 5 note, I've kind of realised I'm not getting the good ending.
What makes you say that?
So, what I've done off stream, is whacked through towards the end of the game. I'm going to get to New Game Plus, get back round to the Final Palace again, to where I was, and have the Justice, who I needed to have up to a certain level. I avoided him because I hated him. Big mistake. So yeah, I missed the good ending because I hated the character that I've got to befriend. So I'm just going back round in the game and like burning through it as quickly as possible. The skip scene has never ever happened so often for me. I was like, skip scene, skip scene, skip scene. So I've got no idea what's actually going on in the story.
Oh, you're missing out then. The story's great.
No, but I get to do the story when I get back round. I just need to get back round with the personas in the right position. But yeah, so I should be back round in about 20 playing hours time, I think. All this because I didn't befriend somebody.
I've just got some additional news which I've just heard, which I want to quickly share. So we talk about Microsoft having this games showcase.
Yeah.
We all thought it was going to be like the 23rd of March. Apparently, according to a reliable Microsoft, so this was according to a reliable Microsoft reporter known as Paul Furr, who said it was going to be March 23rd. According to Windows Central, though, who are also really reliable, they're pretty confident that it's actually just been pushed back by 3 days. And it may be a tech and platform orientated event with some smaller game announcements or something more.
In other words, they've got
a
no
look at games
announcements.
coming to Xbox in 2021. They've also added at the very end that there'll be no surprise to say that basically April, May, and June 2021 are going to be big announcement months from Microsoft, where they're going to be holding regular announcements throughout. And the Xbox Director of Program Management, his name's Jason Ronald, has actually, because he was asked in the podcast interview published this week, what games he was most looking forward to this year. Now, his response to that is quite interesting. Not all games that are releasing this year have been announced.
Interesting to see what games that he's talking about there, because there's obviously some absolute classic games out there which will be absolutely amazing. The thing is, you don't really know his style of game, so you can't really even figure out what the game actually is. So like, it's one of them things where it's like, is it going to be a big thing and celebration of gaming, etc. I don't think this year. I think this year is basically, as I say, I think this year is basically a dud.
To be honest, I'm going to counter that. I'm going to say this year's a dud for AAA. I think if you're an indie developer, as we saw with Phasmophobia, the things you can create in your bedroom can still sell millions, and I look forward to seeing what comes out of that. Yes, I heard you snigger at that. There is one last thing I want to quickly add, which I realise I forgot. I've got it in my notes here, and I should have said it. The Xbox Bethesda Roundtable event that was on Thursday.
Yeah.
The Bethesda Global Marketing Communications VP, Erin, I didn't catch their last name, said that we'll have something this summer.
A remaster, maybe?
I mean, a remaster of Oblivion would probably make my year, but I don't expect it. I don't think we're going to see the new Elder Scrolls game for some time, because last time they were talked about it, they admitted that it was not going to be anywhere near, before coming out before Starfield, which is their new big IP. And judging from the size of what they're talking about and the scale of that project and the impacts and effects of COVID, I don't think it's that. I think that's still too long ago, so I think you're probably spot on. It's Bethesda, though. So, do you know what? I'm just going to say it. It's another remake of Skyrim, isn't it?
Probably. It's like, what should we remake? Skyrim.
Hey guys, did you know that we now have created a virtual digital toilet seat where you can play Skyrim on it? Honestly, I'm joking, but it's not that far from being a joke. Skyrim just comes out on everything. I saw a meme the other day. Harry Potter. It's Professor McGonagall, and she's like looking at the three kids, and she's like, they're going, "Why is it whenever?" And it's just like, has mentioned a new console comes out, it's always you three, and it just simply has GTA 5, Minecraft, Skyrim.
It's so true. And at least Minecraft is evolving.
I mean, it reminds me of my younger brother, right? The other day I was looking at his games collection because he's got games spanning like PS4, Xbox X, all this stuff, right? He's got the 360 as well and the One. Right, I saw Assassin's Creed Black Flag, Minecraft, Skyrim, GTA 5. I must have seen that on pretty much every generation of console he has.
It's like Stockholm Syndrome with those games.
It really is. To be honest, I'm reluctant to even touch GTA 5 again because I've paid for it twice now. I've had it twice.
Oh,
I'm
I'm
just
not
like, you
touching
know
that
what?
game again.
I'm just there going, no, you've had my money. Like, you've had my money on the online version. I've had enough. Right, give me
They've
a new
had
one.
my money 3 times.
Oh, and if you were, and I don't think they would be, but you know, if you are listening to this, guys who make GTA, Rockstar, right? Could you not add flying bomber bikes that grossly imbalance the game, please? For the rest of us, it's not that fun being bombed on all the time. It's actually put me off playing because it's like you either spend 30 quid on this bike or you don't, and I just went, you know what? No.
That's the one thing, and they made some very OP items and made it really hard for new players.
They made it so unbalanced. Although, if we're talking about GTA, I feel like we should probably mention about the passing of the guy who actually created Grand Theft Auto. He died this week. And I don't know if you know this, by the way, Barth.
Didn't.
Guy's actually from Doncaster.
Was he a Donny Rovers fan?
I don't know, but he's from Doncaster, and he was a part of Rockstar Leeds, who made the original game.
We always seem to forget, as a whole, that Rockstar is and slash was probably more now a UK based company.
It was, but that's because they're so centered on America and American style thing. I mean, I get it. You couldn't justify a GTA in the UK because we don't have RPGs and things, but at the same time, I do get the impression that it is something that a lot of people want. They want to go back to London again in a Grand Theft Auto setting.
Oh, they could easily go back there now. Just there'd be less guns and more knives.
Well, I mean, there's Watch Dogs who did it in a sort of similar way with guns and things. Watch Dogs shows that it can be done. It's just, you know, you want a game that rather than you don't want to play the imitation of Grand Theft Auto. You want to play Grand Theft Auto in London. That's really it. But
And they can do it like a dystopian future, or so it's not completely based in today's world. Because let's be honest, what happens in GTA is dystopian. It's not normal. That's not happening in LA or Miami.
it's an incredibly satirical take on what's going
Yeah,
on. I mean, I'm looking at it right, and I'm there going, you've got Grand Theft Auto set in New York, you've got Grand Theft Auto set in LA. They've done those two twice. You then got a special 80s one, Vice City, which, you know, if they decided they were going to remake Vice City, ooh, cool. But, I mean, do Rockstar have any ideas of anywhere else they'd do a game? Because, as fun as it is, like, I don't know about you, I'd like to see them kind of stretch their horizons and maybe do something a little bit more different.
there was talk of it being a 3-city map, wasn't there? At some point, GTA 6 being a 3-city map.
Well, yeah, but it's still the same cities, you know? It's like,
I heard
have
rumors
something.
that London was going to be one of the locations, but at one
Imagine if
point.
it did Grand Theft Auto London or Grand Theft Auto Tokyo, you know, based around the, well, based around the gang warfare that has happened historically in Japan. You could even do one based in, well, you could do it anywhere, just, you know, even if it's a different city in America, just give us something a little different. Because there's only
Certainly,
so many times you could go around.
they're in a stuck position, and I just hope that whatever they decide to do next, they absolutely smash it out of the park, because we've waited long enough for it now.
Hmm.
I heard rumors that there's a GoldenEye remake coming out as well. Talking about remakes,
Which one, sorry?
GoldenEye from N64.
Well, they did actually make a. It's all set up on whatchamacallit. It's legal reasons why you can't play it because of like movie rights and things.
Yeah,
But the fact that GoldenEye's Xbox remaster is now actually in the public domain and you can play it, to be honest, it would be really good if they actually did release it.
yeah. There's rumors of that being released at some point. It was a great game, unless someone picked the fucking small guy and then you just couldn't shoot them because there was like ball height. I still have resentment towards that game.
Do you know what I love? There's a review of the HD version of the game, right? I just want to share this with you because this line has killed me on this review. This review says that Natalia, Boris, and Valentine no longer look like someone punched some peach-coloured Play-Doh into a loaf of bread. They now actually resemble the actors who portrayed them in the film. Savage.
Oh,
But that's the thing. Right. Do you know what? I was talking to my housemate about this the other day, and I would love to just get more opinions on this, but like James Bond games, because we know there's a new one coming out by the guys who made Hitman. But would you be upset if it was like a James Bond styled Hitman where you're doing missions around the world towards some grander, overarching, Spectre maybe villain?
I think that'd be really good. I think that's the way they should go with it. There should be
Would you
like,
be upset if they went for the old theme of having a multiplayer mode similar to Agent Under Fire, Everything or Nothing, Nightfire, and GoldenEye?
afterwards where you could play it. There should be a story and there should be a multiplayer version. The two sides of the coin.
I think you should be able to be any character in multiplayer from the James Bond verse, right?
Yeah.
But, and get ready for this, if you are the worst player in the game, and it's been half of the game, right? Your character automatically becomes Odd Job, making it so much harder for anyone to kill you, to give you a chance to get back into it.
That'd be brilliant. Just magically turn to Odd Job. You are now Odd Job. Just like, yes. It's just why I
And then, another thing on this, right? As Overwatch and Valorant have shown us, you can play a shooter with abilities. Could you imagine James Bond-esque abilities for each different villain? Like, Odd Job has the hat. Just throw the hat and insta-kill.
See, I would if I was developing a game, Odd Job would have to have the hat used.
You've got Jaws with Jaws.
And
I've got the Blu-ray collection downstairs.
Ultimate power.
Yeah. I like maps based on the films. Like, you don't have to have a map for every film, but can you imagine, like, You Only Live Twice, the big base with the missile thing?
Yeah.
It's set in Japan. Could you imagine that as a multiplayer map?
I'd want do you know the island one where the rock splits open, and I think it splits open, and that's where something comes out of.
Is that the man with the golden gun?
I think it might be Man with the Golden Gun.
I mean, what about the underwater sea base from The Spy Who Loved Me?
That would be absolutely awesome.
Or the floating ship base from Tomorrow Never Dies, And the ability to pick a different Bond. Like, you can be Daniel Craig, but, maybe for those guys with a little bit of sophisticated taste, Pierce Brosnan's your man?
Mine would be Brosnan or Connery.
Same.
I hate Craig's Bond.
There is one other thing that would also make it brilliant, but I don't think it would really be in there. But imagine if it was. And let's be honest, right? What a Bond game really needs is what the Batman game gave us, right? So you remember we had Batman Arkham Asylum, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember the follow-up?
Arkham Knight? No, Arkham Knight was third, I think.
Yeah. Do you remember the moment when you realised you could get into the Batmobile?
Oh, yes. And
like, give us a Bond car moment. Like, that's what we want.
There is definitely that Batman series was so good.
It's good to see that there's going to be a brand new. Is it Arkham Knights or what is it called?
Yeah, Arkham Knights. I think Gotham Knights. Yeah, Arkham or Gotham Knights, and I think it's. I want to put a caveat on what I just said about it being a great series. It was a great 1 and 2.
Well, yeah, that does tend to happen though. I mean, things tend to lose their way in that sense.
1 and 2 was pushing the boundaries. What they did and how they created 1 and 2 was brilliant. They pushed the boundaries on 1, they pushed the boundaries on 2, they got to 3, and it was just... Yeah.
I will put out a controversial view on this. I think I think that the Batman games actually inspired the last Spider-Man game a lot more than people might have known.
Oh, it
or
did.
Recognized at the time. Like, the combat system is so fluid. But I think that came out of Batman, because Batman was really the first game that did it in that way, that made people go, wow.
Just think if Avengers had decided to do that.
just think of Avengers had actually been a decent game.
There's so much hate here for Avengers.
Right, Avengers. We don't hate the fact you made an Avengers game, right? That was good. That was a good idea. Now, we'll back to our view, right? Spider-Man, Batman, both games, amazing games, great games. Avengers. Your attempt at the video game, the best way I think most people have described it. I saw one review of it that said that it's this generation's answer to Superman, the video game, which isn't a compliment.
Could you imagine though? And you are a game developer, right? And you pick up the first review and you read it, and you're like, oh shit, that's it must be because they don't like me. You turn the page and then you go, oh, this review will be, oh god, that's also equally bad. And you're like, oh no, this is not looking good.
I mean, the fact they're trying to reclaim it by putting on more things and adding more people, fair play. They're adding more content, but there's just a few things they need to fix in the process of doing it. And,
the whole storyline.
Yeah. I look forward to seeing what they do with it, but I think people as well aren't as kind and forgiving about that as they used to be. Certainly after Cyberpunk and, No Man's Sky, people don't want a game to be dumped on them, which they expect to have, Okay, let me try and phrase this better. If it's a game like Grounded, which is a brand new IP, and they know that it's in development, they understand. If it's a game like Avengers, which isn't in development, they've just paid all that money for, and they're expecting, the finished product, and the finished product isn't up to scratch, they're less forgiving now because they expect out of a development cycle that was as long as it was to be, a lot better. Just my view.
You expect the completed game these days? Well, I'm trying to think of the last completed game that came out. An era where they just patch and fix and all that rubbish. We have day one patches on pretty much every AAA title. It's just wrong. To me, I prefer to wait till a game was completely done. But it's not the way it's done these days. Unfortunately. Anyway, we have burnt through quite a bit of time here. We've obviously touched on some amazing topics. We touched on Batman 1 and 2. Amazing. We touched on GTA and their money grab. No, not money grabbing. They're consistently coming out ideas. We've gone through a number of things today. And on that bombshell, with Final Fantasy VII spoke about, not that page, and overall our much love for some games and much hate for others. Hi Jay. We will love you and leave you. And from me, good night. And from Bear,
good evening.
Hey guys, Roving Bear here. If you've enjoyed our pod chats and you've enjoyed other great content, you can find more from me at twitch.tv/The Roving Bear. Stay safe. I love you all.
You have been listening to a Sanctuary podcast. I have been your host, Barrett87, and there's a few things I'd like to just add. Please remember these important phone numbers. The Samaritan UK is 116123. That's 116123. Shout UK, this is a text line. It's 85258. That's 85258. And Crisis Line USA is 1-800-273-8255. That is 1-800-273-8255. Please go and check out your local phone numbers for organisations like this and pass these numbers on to your friends and family. Keep them in your phone for when you need them and make sure you are using these very important resources. From myself, Barrett87, I want to wish you a fantastic evening, day, or morning. You can find me at www.twitch.tv/Barrett87. And again, peace out and stay well.
Beep, beep. You've been listening to a Sanctuary broadcast. We will now resume regular programming.